But it's true. And look, as for the answer to the question, why can't I just enjoy things? I do have an answer, I think. And if you put a question in your title, you should have an answer at the end, right? That's satisfying. I was doing a preview, a work in progress of this show in Bristol, the Hackney of southwest England. Cool hipster basement, 11% beer, you know. And it was a fun, rowdy gig. People were chipping in, but in like a good way, constructive stuff. And this guy piped up. I'd had a bit of Roman history-based banter with him in... yeah, it's no Berghain, but I do what I can. We'd had a bit of Roman history-based banter because he was a PhD student. And at one point, I'm explaining all this stuff about why I don't enjoy things or how my mind works. And he just goes, well, you just sound like me. And I said, well, what do you mean? And he goes, well, I have Asperger's and you just sound like me. I was like, you have Asperger's and you think that I also have Asperger's because I sound like you. And he goes, yeah. And I said, why? And he goes, well, you knew all that history stuff. And I thought, well, that can't be enough. I mean, it's not the only question on the form. Surely. Do you like history? Well, then I've got some news. Come on, you know. So I made a joke out of it and whatever. We moved on. It was fine. But then the next day, I was on the train back to London. And I was thinking about it. And I was like, you know what? I don't agree. People throw these terms around. I mean, I guess he has it, so maybe... you know, I've been heckled a lot in my career, but rarely so medically specifically, you know. Hecklers rarely go diagnostic. If anything, they paint with something of a broad brush, you know, your shit, things of this nature. And I thought, you know what, I'll show him who has Asperger's. So I conducted 5 to 6 days of intense research. And I found a website where they put up all the tests they do to screen you before they give you the big interview, right? Because they want to screen you out if you don't have it. So you fill in these tests, and if your score's high enough, then you kind of qualify for the big chat. So I thought, great, I'll fill it in, and we'll put this whole thing to bed. And I filled it in, and I scored high. Not NASA high, but European Space Agency, pretty high. Pretty high. So I went, oh, fucking hell. I sent it to a friend. I was like, what score did you get? And he goes, 7. It's out of 240. I got 130 or something. I was like, 7? Did you just put your name? What the fuck? So I was like, okay, I need to sort this out. And like where I live in London, the waiting list for this kind of thing for an adult is years. So I just went, screw it. I'm just going to pay the money and get this figured out. And I did it. And I had the session with the doctor. He didn't even need the whole session. It was like halfway and he was like, yeah, you got it. He's like, you got it. Get out of here, champ. Go read a big book about tanks or something. I don't know. Enjoy your day. The rest of the time is your own. If only there'd been a warning sign. Now, I have the set list for the show here. And bearing in mind that when I got that heckle and then when I got the diagnosis, the show had existed for well over a year, right? So the show's not made for the diagnosis. The diagnosis describes the show. So let's look. If only there had been a warning sign that I see exaggeration as a form of lying. The cry laughing emoji. Fury at public rule breaking, all the cinema theatre stuff. Food textures, crisps and wine gums. Not very externally reactive, the North Korea I'm enjoying myself thing. An inability to know when to tell small lies. Fish blood, why do you ask? A preference for alone time. I'd like to go on the raft, please. Issues with maintaining a solid routine. The morning, and idiomatic confusion or rejection. African children. So, yeah, it's supposed to be a set list, not a checklist. It's quite embarrassing after the diagnosis to just keep doing the show. Just going around the country going, and another thing I hate. Oh, yeah. And to be, and like, I'm 32, right? Like, it's like finding out that your legs have just been broken the whole time. You're just in the doctor's office going, I thought everybody's knees were crunchy. Is that not good? Nice crunchy knee? And to be diagnosed by a heckler. The comedian's natural foe. It's like finding out you're diabetic from Voldemort. Harry, your urine shouldn't smell like sugar puffs. Do you think the piss goblins ever diagnosed anyone with diabetes? He must have, right? Like at least once. At least once he must have just been like, that was like golden syrup. You're welcome back any time, but you must go to the hospital. A friend of mine saw this show, and she said, oh, at the end, you really must tell people how it felt to get this diagnosis. You know, how did it feel? That's what people will want to know. And I have to admit, that absolutely did not occur to me. Further proof that the medical community have absolutely nailed this one. Genuinely, she said it, and I was like, oh yes, feelings. People like to go on about them instead of dealing with them in total silence. How did it feel? Well, I mean, it's worth doing. It's answered a lot of questions. It's explained a great deal. It's quite useful. But then at the same time, I'm 32. The cake's very much already been baked. So yeah, 6 out of 10. It's fine. Okay. Thank you very much, guys. Thanks very much.